delete color group. So now I have the colors that I want. And as you can see, my eyedropper tool is full, but say I have another image that I would like to use. If I had 2 images on this layout, I can just go back to the tool, click on it, and it'll be empty again. So I'm going to my select. I'm double clicking on my text, Control A to highlight everything in the box, and I go to fill. So there's a difference between fill and stroke, especially when you're dealing with shapes. So letters is just another type of shape. So its fill will change the core color of the shape, whereas the stroke will change the color, if there is one, because if it's white with a red line through it, that means that there's no color. So the stroke, if I add a color to it, will change the color of the outline of the shape. So I want to change my fill to the green for my photo, but you will never do this, by the way, hardly ever. But if I want to have a stroke for it and I want it to be blue, well then you see you definitely made a change, and it looks like that. Not good, it's kind of gross, don't like it. So I select all of it, go to my stroke, and make sure it's none. There's a difference between none and paper. Paper is white, whereas, so there will be a white outline. You may not be able to see if I click on it, unless my background was like a different color other than white. So make sure that it's always on none. And for stroke, you can also change the thickness of the line, but again, you don't need to do that for letters. So now we have our headline. We need to add our body text. So let's go to our text tool and just create another little box of text. But say you don't have your story ready quite yet, like you have the idea for your layout, but you aren't sure, you don't know what your story is yet. You don't have it yet, but you know what you want the layout to look like. So what you can do is you go to type, and you go all the way down to the bottom and fill with placeholder text. It's a bunch of random, like, fake Latin words, just so then you have an idea of what the font looks like and all those different little tools. So for Odyssey, for this body text, it's always right aligned. Never right justified, because then there's a bunch of, for example, never right justified, because then there's a bunch of weird spaces, because there's not the same amount of words in each and every single line, not the right length of words on each and every single line, so there's a bunch of weird spaces in between, as you can see. Never do center or right, always aligned left, as such. So great, wonderful. Well, this isn't your entire story. You will need more text boxes, but you can't be just having separate text boxes, right? Like I can't just go back to and have another text box, copy and paste that same amount of text. It's too much work. I'm not going to do that. Nope, no thank you. So there's 2 ways of doing this. One, you can select a text box and click on this tool and link it to this one, and then link it to somewhere else. So if I add more placeholder text, so type placeholder, it all continues on. It links each other. Or what you can do is say you don't want to make more text boxes. You can just select on the box, click on the red plus sign, and go to wherever you want to put it. And then you adjust it on the correct size that you would like. Wonderful. And when you're overviewing your document and you don't see the red square, but you know that the way you can tell that there's an error somewhere is when you look towards the bottom where it says, error. These errors can either be because your photo isn't linked correctly, or there's too much text somewhere and it needs space, because you won't be able to save your work properly unless there are no errors in the InDesign file. So say I don't know where that error is, well, I can just double click on it and it'll just shove me into the right direction. So then I can just click on it and adjust the problem. Wonderful. So then I exit out of that. So now it's green, there's no errors, there's no problem. Life is good. Okay. And since this is all linked, when you do Control A, it selects all of that. So then you can go Apple Garamond, which is the body text font for Odyssey, and you make it to 9. It does look small in InDesign, especially if you may have a small computer screen, but as you may know, when the magazine itself is published, it's a decent size. You can read it. Okay. So one of the things that you need to do, I'm going to make this bigger so I can see it. If you're too zoomed out, the text will show up as gray lines, like gray block lines, and not as actual text. So that's why sometimes you need to zoom in so you can see it. So as you may know, one of the things that Odyssey does, especially towards the beginning of its paragraphs, is have indentations as well as a drop cap. So to do an indentation, Control A, scroll down, and you see this little button right here, where an arrow is pushing just the top. So that creates an indentation for just the top, but we don't just want the top, right? We want to do all of it. So that means you need to have multiple paragraphs, blah, blah, blah. Let's just type. It's super, super fun. So now select everything, and then each paragraph is indented. So 0.125 is enough, but you don't need the first paragraph, which is the super long one right here, to be indented. And as you can see, it's automatic. We're just going to create another one. So we go to that, highlight just the first paragraph, and undo it to 0. Doesn't need to be indented. And then, as I said, you need to do a drop cap as well. So to do a drop cap, which is where the big letter, the first letter of the first sentence of an article is super big, and then it just goes into the standard format. So to do a drop cap, you go to right here, and you click on it 3 times because you want the letter to be the size of 3 lines. We are going to be changing that to O because we usually don't use words that start with Q. And writing and Q's are a little weird. And O is the best example to use because of Odyssey. Anyway, so now our letter is the space of 3 lines. It's big. Wonderful. But as you can maybe see, it is super duper close to all the other words, and we want to give it a little bit of space, a little bit of breathing room. So we highlight the letter again, and we go to this highlighted VA symbol and go to about 30. Most I've ever really had to do is 50, but usually you go to about to 20, 30. You don't need a whole lot. So now there's a little bit of space, and life is again good again. Wonderful. And that is how you do a drop cap, which you can also color again. So I am going to be doing it to green. Just choose a singular color when you're doing your spreads, like same color as your headline and your article. You don't need too many, just be standard. Don't be confusing your reader. So, but you also need to put in your byline, and your byline is a little box that goes right here. But how do you adjust your text box so then there is space for this little box, but it's not the funky little shape of up, to the side, up again,